Hi, so I thought I would make a few lives about shadow and the archetypes, seeing as it's something that I work with, particularly in the men's workshops that I do, and it's something that people ask about quite a bit. So I'm going to introduce the concept of shadow and how the archetypes can be used as a kind of map to make changes that we want to make within our psyche, within our emotional landscape. And this is useful because our shadow, our unconscious, often trips us up, it often keeps us stuck, it often gets in the way. So if we're trying to make a change in our life and we're kind of hitting up against the same things repetitively, that is probably a sign that there is something in the unconscious, something in the shadow. If we're getting caught in compulsive patterns or addictions, or if we're having reactions that don't really fit with us, then it's a sign that it might be useful to have a look at what's there under the surface. So the shadow, the word shadow, it sounds quite dark and mysterious. But it isn't. There can be things in shadow that aren't. So the shadow is anything within us that we hide, repress and deny, any quality within us. And I'll start by talking a little bit about how shadow develops within us, within all of us actually. So when we come into the world as a newborn baby, we have 360 degrees of humanness. We have all of the energies of what it is to be human within us. And if you spend time with a baby or a young child, you see this kind of expression coming out in them. One moment there's fear and tentativeness, they're unsure. And then the next moment they're joyful and excited, they're playing. And then the next moment they're sad. And then the next moment they're angry. So all of these different expressions just kind of come out. But what happens as we kind of develop perfectly naturally, we learn that within our environment, and particularly in relation to our caregivers, some expressions are more welcome than others. So this isn't about our parents being bad or bringing us up wrong. Actually, however good our parents are, there are going to be times when it's hard. And it means that as children we learn to shape ourselves, because humans are very intelligent, and even at that age there's a kind of intelligence in shaping ourselves into the way we need to be in order to be loved by those around us. And that's so important when we're young, because that's all we have. We're reliant on those people around us. So it's essential for us. It's for survival. We need to be loved for survival. So we learn that some expressions aren't as welcome as others. So it may be that when you get angry, when you have a tantrum, that there's a clear sense that that isn't welcome. So you learn to kind of hold back your anger in a subtle, unconscious way. And it may be a neediness that gets held back. But whatever it is, this quality, this kind of natural expression gets changed in a way to please those around us. And we grow up, and that becomes part of our personality. So maybe we grow up with anger kind of pushed away, and then we learn, we develop into a personality that doesn't have so much anger. And that may serve us very well for quite a while in our life. But then as we grow up, it may be that by the time I'm in a grown man, I'm in relationship, and suddenly that anger comes out. And it comes out in a kind of young tantrum way that isn't really who I want to be. And that's a sign that that energy, that anger energy, it's been repressed and it's kind of come out in an unhelpful way. So Robert Bly has this analogy which I really like. It kind of fits for me on a feeling level of a shadow bag that we all have. We all have a shadow bag that we carry around on our backs. And anything that isn't welcome, anything that we find isn't allowed, gets pushed into this bag. And you can imagine, as we grow up, there are lots of things within our society that aren't too welcome. Anger, sexuality gets pushed in there. Our neediness gets pushed away. Selfishness gets pushed away. And by the time we reach even adolescence, we've got quite a lot of material that's kind of sitting in that bag, and it's heavy. We're carrying this heavy bag of shadow around with us, and it affects our energy and life force. So it kind of saps our energy. And also, each thing which is in the bag has a positive quality that gets lost with it. So, for example, if I put anger into my shadow, I lose access to my fierceness and power. If I put my neediness into shadow, I pretend I have no needs, then my vulnerability and my tenderness isn't seen, and people will find it harder to connect with me. If I put my selfishness into shadow, which might seem like a bad thing, right? So if I put my selfishness into shadow, then I'm constantly looking after other people, and I can't kind of come back to what actually I need. And it may be that there are positive qualities that are wholly put into shadow. So I put my joy into shadow. That's something in me that kind of got pushed away because on some level it wasn't safe to fully express that kind of childlike joy. So that got pushed away. So there can be many things that live, that kind of float around in our shadow. And because they are repressed, because they're denied within us, they don't see the light and the love of our own consciousness. And they kind of de-evolve because they're not in connection with all of us. Which is why when these expressions come out, they can seem very young. And I think most people experience this. I mean, particularly in relationship, there can be times where we have a reaction and it doesn't feel like us. Some people call it getting triggered. So we get triggered and we have this response, and we know it doesn't really fit with who we are as a person. And this is often a sign that there's something there that's kind of an unconscious part of ourselves that has been repressed. The other symptom of having something within shadow is within compulsion. So if we find we have compulsive behaviors or addictions that we can't stop ourselves doing, it's often true that there's an unconscious part that's responsible for that. There's an energy that's held within shadow. The other thing that can sometimes happen if we have energies in shadows is we start to, rather than experiencing those energies within ourselves, we suddenly find that we're met by that energy within the world. So to give an example, if I am holding my anger in shadow, if that's getting repressed, I might find that although I experience myself as quite a nice, gentle person, suddenly I come into contact with all of these angry people within my life. It shows up in the people around me, it shows up in groups, in society, it shows up in my dreams, in my nightmares. And I might be completely unaware that this very foreign energy, which seems to be nothing to do with me, is actually a projection. It's what I can't stand within myself that I'm seeing around me. So judgment is another really good way to know that shadow is in play, and also to be aware. And some of you might have seen the series that I did on the critic. What we judge and criticize is a really good way to see what's in our shadow, to have a window into what's there. And this is really useful because by definition our shadow is what we hide and repress. It's hidden. It's by definition in our unconscious. So we have to use ways in which to become conscious of it. And noticing what we judge is a great way to do that. Another way, the other way which I'm going to talk about in this series of lives, is using an archetypal map. So this is a map of the different energies within the human being. And then we can start to see, it seems like that energy is missing from me. And that's a sign that it may be in shadow. And there are different maps. So in this series of lives, I'm going to be talking about the warrior, the king, the magician, and the lover. And that's the Jungian archetypes. But I sometimes actually work with a set of archetypes: fierceness, playfulness, and tenderness. So it's a different set of archetypes. Bill Plotkin has a great set of archetypes in his Wild Mind map. So there's different maps, and none of these maps are the territory. The map is not the territory. They're just representations that help us start to see, that part of the landscape seems to be missing, so that we can inquire a little deeper and see what's there. The other thing that I want to say about the warrior, the king, the magician, and the lover is they sound quite mythopoetic. They're quite, they don't often fit with modern day, and for some people they can have certain connotations. So king or sovereign, people think of royalty and the monarchy, and it's actually nothing to do with that. They're a representation of energies within us. So king or sovereign is about leadership. It's about self-leadership, the part of us that can hold and look after both what's within us and around us in the world. The ability to be a leader. And the lover is about connection, our ability to connect, to feel, to be in our bodies. The magician is about the ability to be aware and to have insight, to see things and create transformation in our lives. And the warrior is about our power, having access to that strength and natural power that's with that fierceness within us. So I won't say any more about the archetypes for now. I'm going to be talking about those in the next 4 lives. But the other thing that is useful and important within this process of taking things out of shadow is it helps to have someone or a community of people around us to help us see what's there. It's actually a really difficult process to do on our own, or from reading a book or watching a video, because we're so fantastically good at fooling ourselves. I mean, if you think about it, this is what we've done all our lives with our shadow. Somehow we fooled ourselves into missing these energies. And I've had quite a few experiences of this within my life where there's been an insight, oh my God, I do that. That energy is within me, and I was hiding it and I didn't even know. So it's so important to have other people there. So that might be a group setting or a facilitator or a coach. Someone who can support you and help you see what's there, and also help you to feel safe enough, because it can be a bit edgy, particularly in the outside world, you know, to take these what can seem quite scary energies out, and not knowing what people's reactions are. So having a held, contained space is actually quite important for doing that within, and also to move at a pace that feels right. So we're not trying to like open up the shadow bag and let it all pour forth in one messy splurge, because that probably wouldn't be very helpful. We need to kind of work slowly and in a gentle way, where we take a kind of small tentative step forward and see what's there and make friends with the energy, so that all of this natural life force, which is it's actually our natural life force and gifts that get pushed away into shadow, we can start to very gently claim that back. And as we claim it back, we get a little stronger, we get a little bit more us. And in turn, that gives us more ability to hold ourselves and to be with these energies and to welcome more of these energies back. So it's both a process of working with shadow, is both a process of transforming patterns within us that are perhaps not so helpful, but it's also a process of rediscovering who we truly are. So I will leave that for now, and I'll be back, I don't know when, but shortly, with another live, which will be on the Lover. I'll start with the Lover Archetype. And yeah, as always, please do post a question or email me a question if there's something that isn't clear or you would find helpful. And please do share this around, and